The floppy disk is about the size of my palm. I'm looking at the court documentation right now. Photographs, evidence logs. The chain of custody form that traces this object from recovery to the moment it became the thing that ended 31 years of terror in Wichita, Kansas. Standard 1.44 megabyte disk. Purple. Generic brand. According to available records, Dennis Rader mailed it to a local television station in February 2005. Inside were documents, a word processing file, metadata that his software had quietly, automatically embedded into every file it created without his knowledge. 2 pieces of information, a name, Dennis, and an institution, Christ Lutheran Church. He had asked whether a floppy disk could be traced back to its sender. Police told him no, that was a lie. That disk is the moment this case pivots from an open wound into a closed file. But here's what keeps pulling me back, not the capture. The 31 years before it. The compliance officer, the church council president, the Boy Scout leader. Neighbors described him as thorough, dependable, a little intense. And between all of that, he murdered 10 people and spent 3 decades waiting to see if anyone would figure it out. I keep returning to a single question. What does it take to live 2 lives that completely, for that long, with that kind of precision, and then make one mistake? That's where this investigation starts. Dennis Lynn Rader was born March 9, 1945. He grew up in Kansas. He served in the Air Force and returned to Wichita. Married, had 2 children. He landed a position as a compliance officer for the city of Park City, meaning he cited homeowners for code violations. The record shows him as meticulous at this job, precise. He kept records. He followed up. On January 15, 1974, 4 members of the Otero family were murdered in their Wichita home. Joseph Otero, his wife Julie, and 2 of their children, Joseph II and Josephine. The other 3 Otero children were not home. They came back to find their family dead. The youngest victim, Josephine, was 11 years old. The original investigation reports described something immediate. No signs of forced entry. Deliberate, organized positioning. This was not impulsive. Someone had planned this. Within weeks, investigators attributed 3 additional murders to the same perpetrator. In October 1974, a letter arrived at the Wichita Eagle. The writer claimed responsibility for the Otero murders and 3 others. How many do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper or some national attention? He then provided 4 letters: bind, torture, kill.btk. Over the following 17 years, he killed 6 more people. His victims ranged in age from 11 to 62. Each killing was planned. Many involved the same methodology. He kept what investigators later confirmed were personal records, photographs, drawings, a documented archive of his own crimes. As meticulous as a project manager's filing system, the case went cold. Then colder dot by the early 2000s. Investigators had spent their entire careers on BTK. The task force had interviewed hundreds of people. Thousands of tips. No arrest. The file stayed open because the reason for that, the reason a man can do this for 31 years inside a community, isn't procedural. It's something else. In January 2004, the Wichita Eagle ran a retrospective piece on the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders. The article floated the possibility that BTK was dead, incarcerated, or had simply stopped. Rader later testified in court that the article irritated him. He was, and this is a direct quote from the record, kind of bored. So he decided to resurface. Sit with that for a moment. This was not a man afraid of being caught. This was a man bored with not being noticed. Starting in 2004, packages and letters began arriving at local media, at police. Cryptic items, photos, references only someone with direct knowledge of the original scenes could construct. The task force, dormant for years, reconvened. Here's where the investigation hits its first real wall. I spent significant time trying to locate detailed records of how investigators analyzed the 2004 communications, specifically what forensic approaches they applied to the physical materials. Published case files document the outcome, but the granular forensic methodology is largely absent. I reached out to Sedgwick County court records. What I received was limited. Secondary sources, investigative journalism from that period, Wichita Eagle archives filled in some gaps, but not all. What I can confirm, DNA evidence played a role. Documents indicate investigators obtained DNA from a database connected to medical records and compared it against biological material from crime scenes. The match was confirmed through forensic analysis. But the floppy disk came first. That's the sequence most accounts reverse, and it changes the entire meaning. The disk metadata, Dennis, Christ Lutheran Church, gave investigators a name to focus on. DNA comparison confirmed identity. In that order, officers arrested Dennis Rader on February 25, 2005, during a traffic stop near his home. The arrest was so quiet that Rader didn't understand at first why he'd been stopped. He thought it was routine. Handcuffs changed his calculation. Now, what was the nature of the mistake? This is the question I kept returning to. Every time I thought I understood this case, Rader had been careful for 31 years. He avoided leaving traceable physical evidence. He used typewriters, payphones, methods that predated digital forensics. When he resurfaced in 2004, he operated with institutional confidence. His methods were still sound. His understanding of investigative capability was current, but it wasn't. He didn't know what metadata was. Not really. He understood floppy disks functionally store files, send files, but he didn't know that his word processor was quietly embedding author information and institutional data into every document it created. He asked whether disks could be traced. He received a false reassurance, and he trusted it. A man who killed 10 people and evaded capture for 3 decades was undone by a feature of Microsoft Word that most people don't know exists. Why resurface at all? That's what wouldn't let me go. He'd gone 13 years without contact after murdering Dolores Davis in 1991. He had successfully disappeared. Why reach back out? Rader's own words from his guilty plea hearing suggest something closer to compulsion than strategy. He described his killings using a term that appears repeatedly in court documents: projects. Each victim was a project, documented, filed, revisited. He kept a personal archive. And when the world forgot the projects existed, when the newspaper article suggested the project manager was gone, something in him couldn't tolerate the erasure. I don't offer that as an excuse. I offer it as the forensic fact of his psychology that the record actually supports. He wasn't hiding in a bunker. He wasn't on the run. He was at church. He was writing compliance reports. He was, by documented account, genuinely engaged in both lives simultaneously. Investigators who interviewed his neighbors after the arrest described the same portrait: slightly authoritarian, detail-oriented, someone who liked to be in charge. These are not unusual traits. They are the traits of a man who ran a church committee and organized a Boy Scout troop, and also of a man who required complete control in the most extreme context imaginable. The overlap is the horror, not the contrast. I thought I had the architecture of this case mapped. 31 years. Organized predator. Digital error. Arrest. Confession. Life sentences. The file closes. Then I kept reading, and I found something I haven't been able to set down. In his 2004 and 2005 communications to police and media, Rader didn't just reference the crimes. He provided specific details: staging information, victim positioning, items taken from scenes that investigators used to verify authenticity. He named his victims. He described his planning process. He described what he calls his fantasy in clinical, matter-of-fact language. Throughout, there is no apparent emotional weight, no remorse, no horror at what he's describing. He writes about murdering an 11-year-old girl with the same register he uses to describe a problematic plumbing inspection. During his guilty plea hearing, Rader was given the opportunity to describe each of his 10 murders in open court. He did so, at length, voluntarily. Court transcripts describe audience members, family members of victims leaving the courtroom. The judge at one point addressed Rader directly about the clinical nature of his testimony. Rader's response was to continue. Experienced interrogators recognize a clinical difference. Someone suppressing emotion shows microsignals. Someone for whom the emotion was never present in the first place doesn't. The transcripts document no suppression, no conflict. What does that mean for how we build the narrative around BTK? What does it mean for the families who waited 31 years for something? An answer, an explanation, a moment of recognition from the man who took their parents, their children, their siblings? I don't have an answer. I've read everything available. I've sat with the testimony, and I still don't have an answer. I've turned this case over so many times I can recite the timeline without notes. Here's where the evidence actually lands. The capture itself was not a failure in the final stage. When Rader resurfaced in 2004 and made the technological error, investigators moved quickly and correctly. The coordination between disk analysis, church metadata trace, and DNA confirmation was competent and fast. From disk to arrest, weeks. The 31 years before that is where I keep landing. The record confirms. Rader was interviewed at least once during the original BTK investigation. He was not identified as a suspect. Records indicate he was among hundreds interviewed after the early murders. He gave no indication, per available accounts, of being anything other than a cooperative community member. What the record doesn't tell me is whether investigators, after his arrest, conducted a formal retrospective review of the original interview files, whether his original interview flagged anything upon re-examination. Reports suggest such post-arrest case reviews are standard practice in major investigations. Though specific documentation of this review remains limited in publicly available files, the failure over 31 years was not primarily investigative. It was structural and technological. The tools available in 1974, 1986, 1991 could not have uncovered a man who left no meaningful physical trace, who lived in the community he was terrorizing, who had no prior criminal record, and who participated functionally in that community. That's not an exoneration of every decision made, but it is the honest accounting. One detail stands out that I can't ignore. Rader's decision to resurface in 2004 was not compelled by anything external. No new evidence was closing in. No witness was coming forward. He had escaped. He chose to return. And in choosing to return, he chose the method, digital communication, that he least understood. The speculation I'm offering here, and I want to be clear, it is speculation. The man who needed to document everything, who needed his projects filed and acknowledged, could not tolerate the world's indifference. The newspaper article that suggested he was dead threatened the archive, and the archive, for Rader, was the point. That's not provable. It is consistent with every documented behavior across his entire criminal history. From the first letter in 1974 to the last floppy disk in 2005, I come back to that floppy disk, dark purple, generic, the size of my palm, a piece of technology already becoming obsolete when he used it. A man who killed 10 people and spent 3 decades hidden inside the ordinary life of a Kansas neighborhood, undone by something he didn't understand, by a feature of his own word processor. There's a version of this story where that feels like justice. Elegant symmetry, the meticulous man caught by his own failure to account for details. I've heard people frame it that way. I can't, because the 10 people murdered between 1974 and 1991 were not part of a story with a satisfying shape. They were people who walked into their own homes and didn't walk out. Their families waited for an arrest, an explanation, a day in court, and eventually got all 3. And still, Dennis Rader is serving 10 consecutive life terms at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. He will die there. The case is closed by every legal and procedural measure. But I keep thinking about a question nobody in the court record could fully answer. Not the investigators, not the behavioral experts, not the judge. How do you live inside a community, inside a church, inside a family, inside a neighborhood for 31 years with what you know you've done and feel nothing that makes you stop? I've read everything available. I've been through court transcripts, evidence logs, behavioral analysis, testimony from his own family members. And I still don't know. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the answer to that question is the thing this case was always really about. Not the capture, not the disk, not the metadata. The fact that the answer doesn't exist in any document, and that he knew that. That's where I'll leave this one.